I never imagined that the quiet ringing of my phone at 5:12 a.m. would change my entire life. The screen glowed in the darkness of my bedroom. Hospital calling, my heart dropped. I answered with trembling hands. "Hello, this is Maria?" A nurse spoke urgently. "Your mother has taken a critical turn. You need to come immediately." I didn't even feel my feet touch the floor. I just ran, barefoot, panicked, terrified, grabbing my keys and a jacket on the way out. I texted everyone in my family group chat, "Mom is critical. Please come, I'm on my way to the hospital." No one replied. Not a single, "Okay," not a single, "I'm coming." Just cold, suffocating silence. When I reached the hospital, the harsh smell of disinfectant and the beeping machines hit me all at once. A doctor approached with a grim expression. "Your mother is stable for now, but it's very serious," he said. "She needs monitoring and someone by her side." "I'm here," I whispered. Hours passed. I sat beside her bed, holding her cold hand, watching the machines that kept her alive. I kept checking my phone, hoping my siblings, cousins, or relatives would walk in or at least call. But nobody showed up, not even my brother, who lived just 20 minutes away. Not my cousins, who posted photos smiling at a brunch earlier. Not my aunt, who always claimed she loved Mom like a sister. No one. I felt emotions building in my chest, grief, anger, disbelief. I wanted to scream, I wanted to cry. But instead, I forced myself to stay calm for her. At 1 p.m., after 8 hours without sleep or food, I finally called my husband, Daniel. He answered after 5 rings. "Yeah? My mom? She's in critical condition," I said, voice shaking. "I need you here. I can't do this alone." There was a pause, a long, cold pause. Then he asked, almost bored, "So, what exactly do you want me to do?" "I just need support," I whispered. "Please come." Daniel sighed loudly, as if I was asking him for something unreasonable. "Maria, I'm busy, and honestly, your mom's health has been draining us financially. We can't keep paying everything for her." I froze. "Daniel, this isn't about money. She's dying." "Everything is about money," he snapped. "If you want me to come, we need to talk about the expenses your mother is putting on us." My jaw dropped. "Are you serious right now?" "Completely," he said. "If I'm going to get involved in this again, we need at least $15,000 set aside. I'm not sacrificing our savings for someone who might not survive anyway." My heart shattered. "Daniel, she's my mother, and I'm your husband," he replied coldly. "But I'm not going to drown in debt because of her bad luck." Bad luck. He called my mother's failing heart bad luck. I felt tears burning my eyes, but I swallowed them down. I wouldn't cry for him. "So," he said, "are you getting the money or not?" "I don't have that kind of money," I said quietly. "Well," he replied sharply, "then don't expect me to show up." And he hung up, just like that. No compassion, no comfort, no humanity. I stared at my phone in disbelief. The man I married, the man who vowed to stand with me in sickness and in health, had just put a price tag on my mother's life. And nobody else from my family cared enough to come. The loneliness pressed down on me like a weighted blanket. I felt small, invisible, completely abandoned. I turned to look at my mother. She was pale, breathing shallowly, her chest rising with painful effort. She looked fragile, too fragile for this world. "I'm here, Mama," I whispered, squeezing her hand. "Even if no one else is." That's when the doctor walked in again. "We're doing everything we can," he said softly. "But she needs support, emotional support." I nodded. "She has me." He smiled sadly. "Sometimes one person is enough." But his words didn't comfort me. They hurt. Because deep down I wondered, why wasn't I enough for my husband? Why wasn't my mother enough for my family? Why did everyone choose to stay away when she needed them most? Hours dragged on. I watched the sunlight fade through the window as night fell. Still, no one came. Not a message, not a call, nothing. The hospital hallways echoed with footsteps, but none of them belonged to the people who should have cared. By midnight, exhaustion hit me. I rested my head on the edge of Mom's bed, holding her hand tightly. I didn't even notice the tears falling anymore. Then suddenly, her fingers twitched. My eyes shot open. "Mama?" I whispered. "Can you hear me?" She didn't speak, but her hand squeezed mine faintly, like she was trying to tell me something. Something important. But before I could lean closer, a nurse hurried in with a concerned expression. Her oxygen levels are dropping again, she said. We're moving her to the critical ward. My heart pounded. Again, I stood alone. Again, no one cared. Again, the only person I could rely on was myself. But I didn't know that tonight. Everything would change. Tonight, something would happen that would reveal the truth about every single person in my life, including my husband. And it would force me to make a decision I never imagined making. I followed the nurse down the long, fluorescent-lit hallway, clutching my mother's hand as if letting go would somehow make her slip away. The ICU smelled of disinfectant and fear, a sharp reminder that life could be cruel and fragile all at once. Machines beeped rhythmically, each sound like a countdown. Once she was settled in the critical care unit, I took a moment to breathe. My knees felt weak, and my chest ached from the hours of worry. I pulled out my phone, a message from Daniel. Have you arranged the $15,000 yet? I stared at the screen. My mother's life hung by a thread, and my husband's first thought was money. He wasn't asking if she was okay. He wasn't asking if I needed help. He wanted cash, $15,000. Right now, I typed a reply. I don't have that money. My mother is dying. Are you coming or not? No response. I called him. Daniel, please, my mother is critical. Can you come? I pleaded, my voice breaking. His sigh was audible over the line. I'm busy. Look, I don't care if she's dying. I told you before, money comes first. What do you mean, money comes first? I shouted. The nurse peeked around the corner, her eyes wide. Yes, I need $15,000 tonight, he said coldly. I can't help you unless you handle that first. I dropped my phone on the bed beside my mother. My hands shook. I felt fury rising. Not the small irritation of everyday arguments, but a deep, boiling rage. How could someone demand money while my mother was fighting for her life? The world narrowed to a single thought. I had to protect her, and that meant making a choice. I left the ICU for a moment to call my sister. Maybe she could help. Maria, I don't know what to do, my sister said softly. I can't leave my kids alone tonight. Her excuses were familiar. The same ones that had kept her away from Mom over the years. I realized something bitter. Family wasn't coming. Not tonight, not ever. I returned to my mother's side and held her hand. It's just us, Mama, just you and me. Hours passed. Every beep, every hiss of the machines felt like a countdown to something inevitable. Then my husband walked in, late, unbothered, dressed neatly like he'd been somewhere more important. So? He asked, smirking. Did you transfer the money? I looked at him, fury tempered with cold clarity. No, Daniel, I haven't. He blinked, confused. No? You have to. I need that money tonight. I'm not giving you a single cent, I said quietly. Not while my mother is in this condition, not while you're more concerned with money than life itself. His face darkened. Maria, don't play games. I built this life. You owe me. I cut him off. You didn't build anything. You've been taking everything from me. You didn't even care to be here when I needed you the most. He stepped closer aggressively. You'll regret this. I can't believe you're... I stood, hands trembling, but voice unwavering. I already regret staying this long. I regret giving you control over my life and my family. But not anymore. A nurse approached nervously. Sir, please, this is a hospital. Daniel waved her off. I'm just talking to my wife. No, I said firmly. You're threatening me and I won't stand for it. His eyes narrowed, but I saw hesitation for the first time. The arrogance, the sense of control that had defined him for years was slipping. He wasn't ready for the real me, the one forged from fear, heartbreak, and my mother's final lessons on strength. I turned back to my mother, brushing the hair from her forehead. I will not allow him to take another piece of my life. For the first time, Daniel's voice faltered. He wasn't used to defiance. You can't do this. You'll ruin everything. I smiled faintly, a smile that carried years of suppressed anger. No, I'm saving everything myself. My mother, my dignity. The machines beeped steadily, a reminder that life persisted. I held my mother's hand tighter. In that moment, I understood. Nothing else mattered. Not money, not marriage. Not anyone who had abandoned us. He stepped back, stunned. I had never seen him like this, stripped of his power, powerless in the face of my resolve. I took a deep breath. You want your money? Fine, but it will not come from me. Not tonight, not ever, and not at the cost of my mother's life. He looked at me, rage building, but I ignored him. My mother's eyes flickered open weakly. She looked at me, a faint smile tugging at her lips. You're brave, she whispered. I leaned closer. I learned from the best, Mama. Her hand squeezed mine gently. Then, don't ever let anyone take your life for money. Her words cut deeper than any insult or threat. Daniel was no longer the threat. He was a symbol, a man who thought money could buy loyalty, love, or respect. And I had finally understood. He could take none of that from me. That night I stayed awake by my mother's side. My husband left, muttering threats that sounded hollow against the truth I had discovered. I was stronger than him. I didn't need him. I didn't need anyone who couldn't see the value of life itself. And in the darkness, I made a silent promise. Tomorrow, everything would change. I would no longer be afraid. I would no longer be his. Tomorrow, I would take my life back. The next morning, the hospital felt quieter. The sun poured through the windows in golden streaks, but the warmth did nothing to calm the ache in my chest. My mother was resting, her breathing steadier, but every monitor beep reminded me how close we had come to losing her. I sat beside her, holding her hand. My phone buzzed repeatedly. Daniel, demanding updates, reminding me of the $15,000, each message sharper than the last. I ignored them all. Then, a text from him. If you don't give me the money today, don't expect me to show up anywhere. You're on your own. My fingers trembled as I stared at the words. For years I had tried to please him. I had bent, compromised, excused, and forgave countless times. But that moment, watching my mother's fragile life hanging by threads while he calculated the price in dollars, something inside me broke. It wasn't fear, it wasn't sadness. It was clarity. I stood up and walked to the window, feeling the weight of the last 24 hours pressing down on me. The decisions I'd made, the moments I'd tolerated his arrogance, the silent complicity I had allowed. I realized something fundamental. I didn't have to live like this anymore. I didn't have to let him dictate my life or my worth. I returned to my mother's side and whispered, Mama, I won't let anyone take your life, or mine for that matter. She smiled weakly, her eyes shining despite exhaustion. You're brave, my brave girl. Her words were fuel to a fire I didn't know had been smoldering inside me. Just then the hospital door swung open. I froze. Daniel walked in, suit pressed, ego intact, holding a phone as if rehearsing his threats. His eyes locked on me immediately. So, he demanded, did you get the money? Or are we going to waste another day? I stood, my heart steady, though my palms were sweating. No, Daniel, I didn't get the money. And I'm not giving it to you. His eyes narrowed. You can't do this. You owe me. No, I interrupted, my voice calm but resolute. I don't owe you anything. Not my mother's life, not my dignity, not my sanity. You walked away when we needed you most. You ignored every call, every plea. And now you want money? Too late. He took a step toward me, anger rising. Do you realize what this means? You can't leave me. You're trapped. I took a deep breath, meeting his gaze without flinching. I'm already free. You just didn't know it yet. Daniel's expression faltered. For years he had thrived on control, on the fear and obedience he demanded from me. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't bending. I wasn't just surviving. I was standing tall finally. Maria, he hissed, voice sharp, if you walk away from this, your mother, your life, everything. I held up my hand. Stop, just stop. You had your chance to be there. You weren't, and now you're irrelevant. This isn't about money anymore. This is about life, dignity, and love, things you'll never understand. He glared at me, disbelief etched in every line of his face. You're making a mistake, he spat. No, I said quietly. The mistake was staying silent for so long. I turned toward my mother, brushing her hair back from her forehead. She looked at me, weak but radiant, as if she understood everything I had decided in that moment. Her eyes sparkled with pride. You're going to be okay, she whispered. You don't need him. You never did. I nodded, squeezing her hand. I know, Mama. I finally know. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but the words caught in his throat. He had never seen this version of me, the woman who refused to be bullied, the woman who refused to be silenced, the woman who had chosen herself and her family over his greed and arrogance. I gathered my courage, my mother's words echoing in my mind. Don't let anyone take your life for money. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick envelope. Daniel's eyes lit up with anticipation, thinking I had caved. He stepped closer, eager. This is it, right? The $15,000? He asked, smirking. I dropped the envelope on the counter in front of him. He opened it. Inside, there was nothing but a copy of the divorce papers I had signed days earlier. Daniel froze. His mouth opened, then closed. His face went pale. What is this? This, I said, voice steady, is my response. You wanted control over my life. You wanted money while my mother was dying. You got neither, and I'm done. He staggered back, shocked and speechless. The years of intimidation, threats, and manipulation had finally met resistance, and it was immovable. You can't, he stammered. Yes, I said calmly. I can. I finally can. And I will. A nurse peeked in, curious about the commotion. Daniel turned to leave, defeated, and I watched him go. For the first time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I returned to my mother's side, kneeling beside her. We did it, Mama. We survived. You're going to be okay, and I'm not letting anyone take away my life anymore. She reached out weakly, placing her hand on mine. I've never been more proud of you, ever. That moment, standing there with her fragile hand in mine, I realized something crucial. Courage isn't loud. It isn't about dramatic confrontations or shouting matches. Courage is quiet, it's steady. It's standing up when no one else does. And tonight I had finally found it. He glared at me, disbelief etched in every line of his face. You're making a mistake, he spat. No, I said quietly. The mistake was staying silent for so long. I turned toward my mother, brushing her hair back from her forehead. She looked at me, weak but radiant, as if she understood everything I had decided in that moment. Her eyes sparkled with pride. You're going to be okay, she whispered. You don't need him. You never did. I nodded, squeezing her hand. I know, Mama. I finally know. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but the words caught in his throat. He had never seen this version of me, the woman who refused to be bullied, the woman who refused to be silenced, the woman who had chosen herself and her family over his greed and arrogance. I gathered my courage, my mother's words echoing in my mind. Don't let anyone take your life for money. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick envelope. Daniel's eyes lit up with anticipation, thinking I had caved. He stepped closer, eager. This is it, right? The $15,000? He asked, smirking. I dropped the envelope on the counter in front of him. He opened it. Inside, there was nothing but a copy of the divorce papers I had signed days earlier. Daniel froze. His mouth opened, then closed. His face went pale. What is this? This, I said, voice steady, is my response. You wanted control over my life. You wanted money while my mother was dying. You got neither, and I'm done. He staggered back, shocked and speechless. The years of intimidation, threats, and manipulation had finally met resistance, and it was immovable. You can't, he stammered. Yes, I said calmly. I can. I finally can. And I will. A nurse peeked in, curious about the commotion. Daniel turned to leave, defeated, and I watched him go. For the first time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I returned to my mother's side, kneeling beside her. We did it, Mama. We survived. You're going to be okay, and I'm not letting anyone take away my life anymore. She reached out weakly, placing her hand on mine. I've never been more proud of you, ever. That moment, standing there with her fragile hand in mine, I realized something crucial. Courage isn't loud. It isn't about dramatic confrontations or shouting matches. Courage is quiet, it's steady. It's standing up when no one else does. And tonight I had finally found it. I smiled faintly. I have everything I need. My mother is alive, I am alive, and I have my dignity. That's more than you could ever give me. Daniel's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, to threaten, to manipulate, but he found himself powerless. Every tactic he had used for years fell apart before my calm certainty. I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. He expected cash. He stepped forward eagerly, eyes bright. I let him open it. Inside were the divorce papers I had signed days earlier, official and final. He froze, his hands shook. His arrogance melted into disbelief. You can't, he stammered. I just did, I said softly. I've had enough. I will not sacrifice myself for your greed or your cruelty. I will not allow you to take anything from me. Not my mother, not my life, not my peace. His face went pale. He muttered something under his breath and turned to leave, but I spoke one final time. Remember this, respect and love can't be bought or demanded. They are earned. You chose to be cruel. I chose to be free. He walked away, defeated, powerless, and for the first time I felt something I hadn't in years: relief. I returned to my mother's bedside. She reached for my hand weakly. "You made the right choice," she whispered. I leaned down, pressing my forehead to hers. "No, Mama. You made me strong enough to make it." Her eyes glistened with tears. "You've always been strong. I just hoped you'd see it." That day, I realized something fundamental. The fight wasn't about money. It wasn't about who had control. It was about standing up for what mattered most: life, love, family, and self-respect. And for the first time, I truly understood what freedom felt like. The days that followed felt surreal. My mother was recovering steadily, her fragile strength returning with each passing hour. Watching her slowly regain the color in her cheeks, the warmth in her hands, and the life in her eyes was like watching a miracle unfold, a miracle I had fought to protect. Daniel's absence was deafening. Not a single message, not a single call. The man who had once demanded $15,000 while my mother lay fighting for her life had vanished. But I wasn't angry anymore, not at him. My anger had been replaced by clarity and a quiet, steady determination. I spent hours sitting beside my mother, holding her hand, listening to her weak voice as she told stories about our past. She smiled more now, and with each smile, I felt my own strength rebuild. I realized that true courage doesn't come from confrontation alone. It comes from surviving the moments when others fail you and choosing your own path despite the fear, pain, and betrayal. One afternoon, while my mother rested, I reviewed the divorce papers once more. They were finalized, stamped, and legally binding. Daniel had lost control completely. The realization settled over me like warm sunlight. I had reclaimed my life. I walked into the hospital corridor and saw him standing there, looking desperate and defeated. His expression was a mix of confusion, anger, and disbelief. "You can't just," he began, but I stopped him with a calm, steady gaze. "No," I said quietly, "you can't, and I won't let you." He tried to raise his voice, to threaten me again, but this time it didn't work. I didn't flinch. I didn't hesitate. I simply held up the divorce papers, reminding him that the power he had wielded over me for years was gone. "You wanted control," I said, my voice unwavering. "You wanted money. You wanted fear. But none of that belongs to you anymore. I've chosen life. I've chosen freedom. I've chosen myself." Daniel's face went pale. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Words failed him. For years, he had relied on intimidation, manipulation, and my compliance. Now, confronted with the woman I had become, he had nothing left. He turned and walked away, defeated, powerless, and I watched him go without a shred of regret. Not because I was cruel, but because I finally understood. Some people are not meant to remain in your life. Some people exist only to teach you the value of standing strong. Returning to my mother, I sat beside her and held her hand. She looked at me with tears glistening in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved both our lives." "No, Mama," I said softly. "You saved me. You taught me courage. You taught me strength, and you showed me that life is worth fighting for, even when it feels like the world has abandoned you." She smiled faintly, squeezing my hand weakly but with intention. "I knew you could. I always knew." The next morning we left the hospital. The streets felt brighter, the air fresher, and the weight of Daniel's control seemed like a distant nightmare. Walking beside my mother, I realized that the fear, the betrayal, and the pain had all led to this moment. A new beginning, free from toxicity, fear, and the people who had failed us when we needed them most. Weeks later, we settled back into our home. My mother recovered fully, and life slowly regained its rhythm. She would often look at me and say, "You've become stronger than I ever imagined." And I realized that she was right. I had discovered a strength I never knew I had. The strength to protect, to fight, and to choose myself when no one else would. Daniel's absence became permanent. His threats, his demands, his attempts to control me no longer mattered. I had reclaimed every ounce of power he had tried to take. The $15,000 he demanded never existed in my mind again, because I had something far more valuable: self-respect, courage, and the knowledge that life's true treasures are not money or control, but love, loyalty, and integrity. Sitting with my mother one evening, I held her hand and whispered, "We survived, Mama. We finally survived, she smiled, tears streaming down her face. Yes, we did. And you've shown me that even in the darkest moments, courage can light the way. For the first time in years, I felt completely free. Free from fear, free from manipulation, free from people who valued money over life. And in that freedom, I discovered the power of standing firm, speaking truth, and choosing myself, the lesson my mother had been trying to teach me all along. I realized that true strength is not measured by wealth, obedience, or control. It is measured by resilience, compassion, and the courage to act when no one else will. And as I watched my mother sleep peacefully, I knew this. The past, the pain, and the betrayal had led me here, to a life of courage, dignity, and unwavering self-respect. We were alive, we were free, and nothing, not even Daniel, could take that away.